Greetings, this is Reverend Due McCormick of True Vow Temple. In this presentation I will discuss the Kaikyoge, also known as Verses for Opening the Sutra, which is used in morning and evening devotional practices and other services within Nichiren Buddhism. In this first part I will cover the background of the Verses for Opening the Sutra and analyze the first portion of it, which we share with other schools of Buddhism. An important part of Nichiren Shu's services is the practice of sandan, or extolling. This refers to the practice of reciting a verse or passage extolling the virtues of chanting the Lotus Sutra and the Odaimoku to arouse our faith and reverence. The sandan verses and passages are reflections upon what a rare and precious opportunity it is to encounter and put into practice the Buddha Dharma. Some sandan are for recital before chanting passages from the Lotus Sutra, while others follow the chanting of the sutra or Odaimoku. The standard ones used in Nichiren Shu are found in the Shute Nichiren Shu Hoyoshiki, the standard Nichiren Shu ceremonies and protocols. One of the most common sandan is the Kaikyoge, or Verses for Opening the Sutra. The first portion of the Verses for Opening the Sutra is used by many schools of East Asian Buddhism. It is not known when these verses first appeared or by whom they were composed, though they were known by the early 7th century as they appeared in the preface to Shikshananda's translation of the Flower Garland Sutra. In the standard version used by other schools of Japanese Buddhism, the chanting of these verses would sound like this. Mujo jin jin mi myo ho hyakusen mango nan sogu ga kon kenmon tokujuji gange nyorai shinjitsugi. The translation of these verses by Kazuaki Tanahashi in the book Zen Chants is as follows. The unsurpassed, profound, subtle, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met even in 100,000 myriad eons. Now we see it, hear it, receive it, and maintain it. May we realize the Tathagata's true meaning. The verses for opening the sutra used in Nichiren Shu can be found in Dharma, Nichiren Shu Service Book, published by the Nichiren Buddhist International Center in 2007. This was itself based on the verses for opening the sutra that had been used by the Nichiren Order of North America for many decades. As can be seen, the full Nichiren Shu version of the verses for opening the sutra is much longer than the original version. Why is this? The extended version of the verses for opening the sutra was composed by a Nichiren Shu priest in the 19th century named Nichiki Udana-in. Udana-in Nichiki lived from 1800 to 1859. He was a great scholar and reformer of Nichiren Buddhism who helped to establish the modern education system of Nichiren Shu. Pictured here is a set of his collected writings. Several of the sandan or passages used in Nichiren Shu for extolling that are in the book The Standard Nichiren Shu Ceremonies and Protocols were written or composed by him. The verses for opening the sutra composed by Nichiki Udana-in are meant to serve as a contemplation of the incalculable merit of being able to encounter not just the Buddha's teachings generally, but the Lotus Sutra in particular. The standard Nichiren Shu Ceremonies and Protocols has two versions of the verses for opening the sutra composed by Nichiki Udana-in. One version is in the kundoku, or understandable chanting style, begun by Udana-in Nichiki. This is the way of chanting in the vernacular, as opposed to the Sino-Japanese or Shindoku reading. Kundoku, however, particularly connotes chanting in the written style of 19th century Japan. In Japanese language Nichiren Shu services, the verses for opening the sutra are usually chanted in the kundoku style. Here is how it sounds. Mujo jinjin mimyo no ho wa hyakusen mango nimo ai tate matsuru koto kadashi wade ima kenmon shi juji suru koto etari nego wako wa no dai chigi oge sen shigoku no dai jo shigi sube kadazu kenmon sokuchi mina bodai ni chikazuku no senwa hoshin shosenwa hoshin shikiso no monji wa sono achi kore o jin nari muryo no kudoku mino kono no kyo ni atsumare di kono yue ni jizai ni myo ni kunji mitsu ni yakusu uchi muchi sumi o meshi zen no shozu moshi wa shin moshi wa ho tomo ni butsu dojo zen sanzei no shobutsu jin jin no myo den nari shoujo seisei chigu shi chodai sen. During readings of the verses for opening the sutra, the hands are in gasho up to Nego wako wa Nyorai no Dai Ichigi Oge Sen. From Shigoku no Daijo, you begin to pick up the sutra. At Kenmon Sokuchi, the sutra is elevated before the face. It rests on 4 fingers of each hand with the thumbs raised to the sides for support. The top surface of the sutra should be at eye level. At Chigushi Chodai Sen, the last line of the verses, the minister bows his head slightly without moving the sutra book. Here is a translation of these verses that are in the Nichiren Shu services. The most profound and wonderful teaching is presented in this sutra. This sutra is difficult to meet even once in thousands and millions of eons. Now we have been able to see, hear, receive, and keep this sutra. May we understand the most excellent teaching of the Tathagata. The most excellent teaching of the great vehicle is very difficult for us to understand. We shall be able to approach awakening when we see, hear, or touch this sutra. Expounding is the Buddha's reward body. Expounded is the Buddha's dharma body. The letters composing this sutra are the Buddha's accommodative body. Just as perfume is caught by something put nearby, so shall we be richly benefited by this sutra, even when we are not aware of being so benefited, because infinite merits are accumulated in this sutra. We can expiate our past transgressions, do good deeds, and attain Buddhahood by the merits of this sutra. It does not matter whether we are wise or not, or whether we believe the sutra or slander it. This sutra is the most wonderful and most excellent taught by the Buddhas of the past, present, and future. May we meet and receive it, birth after birth, world after world. Note that the first paragraph corresponds to the original verses for opening the sutra. The part where we would pick up the sutra is at the beginning of the second paragraph that starts, "The most excellent teaching of the Tathagata." We elevate the sutra to eye level at, "We shall be able to approach awakening when we see, hear, or touch this sutra." And finally, our heads should bow slightly at, "May we meet and receive it, birth after birth, world after world." The standard Nichiren Shu ceremonies and protocols also has a version of Nichiki Udana-in's extended verses for opening the sutra in classical Chinese. This would be recited in the Shindoku, or proper chanting style, a Japanese approximation of the pronunciation of the characters used in the Wu dynasty of 3rd century China. Here is how it should sound. Mujo jin jin mi myo ho hyaku sen mango nan sogu ga kon ken mon tokuju ji gange nyo dai dai ichigi shi goku dai jo fu ka shi gi ken mon sokuchi kai gon bo dai no sen ho shin sho sen ho shin shiki so mon ji sokuze o jin muryo ku doku kai shu ze kyo ze ni ji zai myo kun mitsu yaku uchi muchi metsu zai sho zen yaku shin yaku ho gujo butsu do Sanze sho butsu jin jin myoden shoujo se se chigu chodai. Now let us compare the original version of the first paragraph with Nichiren Shu's version. They are almost the same except for the last 3 characters. The chanting of these verses would sound like this. Mujo jin jin mi myo ho hyaku sen mango nan sogu ga kon ken mon tokuju ji gange nyo dai dai ichigi. Here is how this is translated in the Nichiren Shu service book. The most profound and wonderful teaching is presented in this sutra. This sutra is difficult to meet even once in thousands and millions of eons. Now we have been able to see, hear, receive, and keep this sutra. May we understand the most excellent teaching of the Tathagata. The first line of this reads, Mujo jin jin mi myo ho. Mujo is unsurpassed. Jinjin is most profound. Mi is unspeakably, and Myoho is wonderful Dharma, as in Myoho Renge Kyo, the Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Dharma. However, Mi and Myo can be put together as a compound. Mimyo, according to jisho.org, has the obsolete meaning of unspeakably wonderful, sublime, exquisite, or marvelous. Wiktionary.org says that in modern Japanese it generally has negative connotations. It is used euphemistically to mean not bad but not very good either. I am going to assume that in this case we should understand the term to mean unspeakably wonderful. Also notice that this says nothing about anything being presented in a sutra. It is simply describing the Dharma, though of course we can take it to mean the wonderful Dharma as expressed in the Lotus Sutra. So literally, this reads, the unsurpassed, most profound, and unspeakably wonderful Dharma. The Nichiren Shu Service Book has, the most profound and wonderful teaching is presented in this sutra. The next line is, Hyaku sen man go nan so gu. Hyaku is 100, sen is 1,000, and man can mean 10,000 or myriad, which itself means 10,000 from the ancient Greek. Go is used to translate the Sanskrit term kalpa, which can be translated as age or eon. There are kalpas of varying time spans, though all of them are of astronomical length. Nan is difficult, and sogu is to meet or encounter. So literally it reads, is difficult to meet even in 100,000 myriad eons. Or in the Nichiren Shu Service Book, this sutra is difficult to meet even once in thousands and millions of eons. Putting this together we have Mujo Jinjin Mimyo no Ho wa Hyakusen Mango Nimo ai Tate Matsuru Koto Karashi, which means, the unsurpassed, most profound, and unspeakably wonderful Dharma is difficult to meet even in 100,000 myriad eons. Next we have Ga Kon Ken Mon Tokuju Ji. Ga is we, Kon is now, Kenmon is to see and hear. Toku can mean acquire by itself, and Juji means to receive and keep. The ideograms Juji can also be translated as accept and uphold, or receive and embrace, receiving and keeping, or simply preserve or uphold. It is the first of the 5 practices of a teacher of the Dharma. The 5 practices of a teacher of the Dharma are listed at the beginning of the 10th Teacher of the Dharma chapter of the Lotus Sutra. They are to 1. Keep, 2. Read, 3. Recite, 4. Expound, and 5. Copy the Lotus Sutra. They are mentioned several times throughout the rest of the sutra as those things which will be practiced by those who uphold the Lotus Sutra, and which will bring them immeasurable merit. The practice of keeping the Lotus Sutra is considered to embrace all 5 practices in itself. So literally this means, now we have been able to see, hear, receive, and keep it. Or in the Nichiren Shu Service Book, now we have been able to see, hear, receive, and keep this sutra. The next line is, Gan ge nyorai dai ichi-gi. Gan is may, ge is understand, Nyorai is Tathagata, Daiichi is foremost, and Gi is meaning. The title Tathagata is composed of the Sanskrit words Tata, which means suchness or thusness, and either Gata, which means gone, or Agata, which means come. Therefore, the compound word Tathagata can mean either one thus come or one thus gone. The ideograms Nyodai mean thus come one. So literally this means, may we understand the Tathagata's foremost meaning. Or in the Nichiren Shu Service Book, may we understand the most excellent teaching of the Tathagata. The original version of the verses for opening the sutra has Shin Jitsu Gi for the last 3 characters. Shin by itself means truth or reality. Jitsu by itself has the same meaning. As a compound, we can take this to mean what is true or real. This compound has also been used to translate the Sanskrit word paramartha, or the ultimate truth. Gi means meaning or implication. In the original version, the true meaning of all the Buddha's teachings is what is being referred to. In the Nichiren Shu version, Shinjitsu has been changed to the compound Daiichi, which means first or foremost. Of course, from a Nichiren Shu perspective, the foremost teaching of the Buddha is the Lotus Sutra. This is why the Nichiren Shu service book has the loose translation, "May we understand the most excellent teaching of the Tathagata." Putting this together, we have Wareima kenmon shi jujitsu koto etari nego wako wa nodai no daiichi yoge sen, which means, now we have been able to see, hear, receive, and keep it. May we understand the Tathagata's foremost meaning. I now bring this first of two parts of my presentation on the verses for opening the sutra to a close. I look forward to your questions and comments. May the merits of this talk on the Dharma extend universally to all, so that we and all living beings together accomplish the Buddha way.